Hey, welcome to Integrated Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith, and how are you all today? Welcome to everybody, especially all the new people, both on YouTube and on Patreon. I want to talk about war. You've been thinking about and hearing about a possible Third World War. You've been hearing about a possible Civil War. You've been hearing about a possible revolution. You've been hearing about all sorts of things, rights wars and rumors of wars. Have you thought about a war with Mexico? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. It could be coming. Before I get started, I want to thank everybody. By the way, the latest book, Hostages to Fortune, is exploding. I just looked at the figures from Amazon, and this thing is just exploding. Here in the United States, Canada, Australia, Europe, I get specific figures from Germany and from the UK, but the rest of Europe just says Europe. But folks, this I don't think I've ever had a book that exploded this fast, this big. So I want to thank all of you. I have something, and I wrote, as a matter of fact, in the dedication, for those of you who have read my books know that I always put in a dedication. It's always to my wife and kids. This I added something, and I'll read the whole thing for anybody who may be interested. This is kind of personal, and I don't usually put this kind of stuff on YouTube, but it is. And I said to my mother and father, who showed me what to do and how to do it, to God who directed and blessed it all, and as always to my wife and children, for whom I do it all. And that's all true. But I added something down at the bottom, and I said, and to all the stone motters who have been with us on this journey of survival and rebuilding, you are the ones who will rebuild the world if and when this happens. And of course, what I refer to there, for anybody who's kind of new to us, is the story of the Stone Mott series. My book's about how to prepare for, how to survive, and how to rebuild after a complete collapse of the world. So, yes, this is out now. Hostages to Fortune. It's both out. Well, it's out in Kindle, it's out in paperback, and like I just announced yesterday, I think, this is the first one that is now out in hardback. The price I have the way to get these, you can get them through Amazon. The link I always put down there below in the description and then in a pinned comment. I don't remember what the prices of the Kindle and the paperback are. I know the price of this. Well, I think I don't want to lie to you, so I would have to check. This is more expensive because it's a hardback, and I will be putting up what these cost. It's already on Amazon. It'll tell you, and I forget what it costs. And I'll be telling you what it costs for me, or maybe I'll put it down in the description. But this turned out beautifully. For those of you who do like hardbacks, I'm very pleased with how this one came out. And I have a couple of other cool things that I'll announce sometime later this week. But I just wanted to let you all know about that, and thank all of the stone motters around the world who have read these books and enjoyed them and learned from them. I've gotten so many messages from people saying, we're on our third time through reading the series. I had one person says, I'm on my fifth time through, can't wait to get the new book. Well, it's out there now. Okay. War with Mexico. Mexico, first off, I want to start with this. I have absolutely nothing against the Mexican people. I love Mexican people. Now, I don't love all of them because I don't know all of them. And I'm sure that if I knew all of them, I'd find some that I didn't love. But the ones that I have known in my life are just excellent people. And I've had a number of friends who were Mexican, or Mexican-American, or of Hispanic descent. Doesn't matter. But if we're just talking about Mexicans today, and by that I mean those people who have come over recently into our country, legally or illegal, I'm not going to talk about that here. I have found, and I know a lot of the people who have come over in those crowds are bad hombres, right? I do not like them, but I don't associate with them, and I just want to speak to the ones that I know of. These are some of the best, hardest working people I have ever met in my life. Okay, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you will see van loads of guys heading to work, working on roofs all day long, just like every other flood of immigrants. They're doing the hard work, just like so many of our ancestors, the Irish and the Germans and everybody, the Italians, everybody that came over, always the newest wave of immigrants take the toughest jobs, and then they build up. And the ones that I know are just excellent people. So I wanted to get that out of the way so that there was no misunderstanding of how I feel about this. What I am talking about here is the Mexican government and the way our government has also played in this, and other factions within Mexico that do not have our best interests at heart. Okay? Now this is nothing new. We have known, and if you've read my books, and some of you may not be aware, in my books I have mentioned and covered quite a bit the Reconquista movement. If you're not familiar with that, look it up or read my books again, and you'll see that I talk a lot about the Reconquista movement, a reestablishment of Aztlan, okay, the historical land, Hispanic land before, when what was Mexico, owned by Spain, went clear up through California and all through the Southwest. Well, there is a movement, and it's very important to some of the people in that movement that they reclaim most of the American Southwest for Mexico. Okay, this is simply the latest chapter in history. Do I fault them? Hey, this is what people do. This is what nations do. People are always wanting something that belongs to somebody else, right? My good friend Geronimo, said the same thing. This is just how it works. And I'm not going to make a political statement on this. What I'm going to say, it's important for us to understand that these things are at play and that we need to prepare for it. We need to be ready for it. Now, we're not going to have an effect on what's happening on the big political stage of the world, but our preparations need to be headed in this direction. Now, why do I say that there may be a war with Mexico? Well, Mexico has been at war with us for a long time. Mexico, and by that I mean certain powers within the Mexican government. Even in the Mexican government, there are good people. Even in the law enforcement areas, there are good people. A lot of them are corrupt. Mexico has always had problems with corruption. And we here in the United States are no one to speak anymore, are we? And Latin America has always been a problem. After the fall of Vietnam, and I won't go through all this, well, I'll just say this, when China white heroin stopped coming in from Southeast Asia, that's when Mexico became a large point of origin for what was called at the time Mexican brown heroin, and then became, the avenue up through which cocaine came in many cases from South America. Sometimes it went to Miami, sometimes it came across to the Gulf, sometimes it went, but a lot of it came up to Mexico. We know, and everybody knows right now, how big of a problem our southern border is, our border with Mexico. We know that our people down on that border, our Border Patrol, all the enforcement down there are just overloaded. We know that their hands have been tied by our government. We know that drugs are pouring across the southern border, killing Americans. We know that human trafficking is flowing across our border, victimizing those who are trafficked themselves, as well as bringing crime in our country, depressing wages, escalating crime, It's a horrible situation. It is an invasion. It's a civilian invasion in many cases, even though some of these are, the cartel involved. It's a civilian invasion of our country, assisted and abetted by our own government. Simple as that, The interesting thing, and now we have seen also, and not just have seen, but over the past years, we see that it's not just Hispanics coming across the southern border, but military-age males from the Middle East and China. So Mexico, as a government, and all of those within the power structure, which you cannot separate most of the government from the cartels. In some ways you can, some ways you can't, just like here. Okay, they have aided and abetted the smuggling of people who are determined to destroy our country into our country. Okay, now it was interesting to me that who's that little guy down in South Carolina? What is it? I always forget. Hey, honey, you in there? Yeah, okay. Hey, what was John McCain's little buddy's name down there in South Carolina? Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Grahamnesty. That's right. Mrs. Snerdley is in the other room helping me out on this. She remembers everybody's name. When I don't like somebody, I don't remember their name. Lindsey Graham actually made a statement, and this is what made me make this one today. He made a statement that he was proposing a bill that would allow us, and he was kind of soft on his language, and so I don't remember exactly how he put it. He left himself wiggle room as he always does, as politicians always do. But that as we address Mexico militarily, okay, now that, what does that mean? Does that mean putting our troops on the border? Our troops don't have to be on the border, although our troops should be on our border rather than any border elsewhere in the world. Okay, but we have plenty. That's why we have law enforcement here in the United States. They're supposed to secure our borders. That's the job of the federal government. But of course, the federal government seems that it's more necessary for them to be involved in surveilling parents at school board meetings and things like that. But anyway, since they've abdicated this responsibility, and we know that they've done that, so because they are abating the Mexican invasion, I take you back to Fast and Furious, right? Obama and Eric Holder, when they, sent all those guns down there to Mexico, and hoping that they would result in a bunch of murders that then they could blame on the American gun culture. Remember that? Okay. So they're all working together, and it's we who are caught in the middle and have to protect ourselves. So Lindsey Grahamnesty says, well, he's putting together a bill that we need to be able to address the Mexican problem, the problem with Mexico, the problem at the border, not the problem with Mexicans, militarily. Now, what does that mean? The last time we went into Mexico, you guys ever heard of General Blackjack John Pershing, great World War I general? He was the mentor of all the other World War II generals, Omar Bradley and all those, Eisenhower, MacArthur, all those. Well, matter of fact, he was from up here, just north of here, Laclede, Missouri, up in Lynn County, about 100 miles northeast of where I am here. And he was the one that he went down. They were Pancho Villa. Remember Pancho Villa? Have you ever heard of Pancho Villa? Great Mexican revolutionary and bandit. This was during the Mexican Revolution, and he was trying to overthrow the Mexican government and raided into the United States. He raided some town in New Mexico. I don't remember the name of it, anyways. And so they sent John Pershing down there, Blackjack Pershing, to chase him down, and Pershing went into Mexico, went after Pancho Villa, didn't catch him, caught some of his people, and then they kind of settled back into some kind of political agreement. I guess the agreement must have been that we would open our borders to Mexico ever since. I got caught on the border down in Nogales one time. I'll probably tell that story for the people on Patreon. When I was younger and not quite so smart, it was an interesting time. So anyway, what's going to happen? If we escalate, now we're escalating all over the world. Lindsey Graham never saw a war he didn't want to be a part of. Not him personally, but he didn't want us to get involved in. You know, the Democrats are like that too. Now that they've destroyed our military, except for a few, and I know some great guys who are still in. Why they're still in, is beyond me. But every time a Democrat comes in, they destroy the military, and then they send the military out all around the world doing things they don't need to be doing. So Gramnesty wants us to kick it up in Ukraine, and they're getting ready for a third world war. They're doing all sorts of things. They're sending tanks, and now we're talking about a military posture against Mexico. Well, you know what this means? Well, it means you need to up your, you saw this coming, right? You need to up your preparedness, because what would it look like if our border dissolved more than it already has? I don't know if some of you live down on the border. I know we have people down in Texas that watch here. I don't know how close to the border you, well, I know how close some of you are, but I don't know if we do. If you live down in Texas or New Mexico or Arizona or wherever, leave a comment. Tell us how things are in your area, in your neighborhood, on your land, on your ranch. But if we don't seal that southern border, if, on the one hand, we encourage incursions into our country, and then we declare that we're going to oppose the ones and elevate it up, what do you think is going to happen? Well, we're not able to seal it. We would be able if we let our guys do their job and we had somebody with a political spine to back it up. But under the current regime, they're not going to secure our border. So we're going to continue to have an increased number of these anti-American people, be they Mexican, Honduran, Guatemalan, Salvadoran, Chinese, Iranian, Pakistani, whatever it is. We're going to have an increased number of those people pouring into our country. With what plans? Who knows? I mean, if I was in charge of running them, I know what my plans would be against America, against the United States. So this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't think about. There is and has been, and it didn't start necessarily in the universities, but has really been promoted in a lot of the Hispanic culture, university programs, a movement for reconquista, a reconquering of the American Southwest to take it back into the Hispanic Latino fold. And I'm not sure. I know that people use those terms differently, Latino and Hispanic, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I don't care. So, call it what you want. And that they are pushing for that Aztlan. Okay, if you want to know what that is, just read my books or look it up, wiki it. But I have talked about it in my books because even years ago I knew that this was a danger. So think about that. Throw that into your bag of concerns because there are plenty of this to think about. But I'll tell you what, this is one of the most concerning threats that we have right now. I don't think that a nuclear war is going to pop off. Could. I don't know. I can't guarantee that it's not. I don't doubt that an EMP or a CME is going to occur. We are now in the 25th solar cycle, and it's getting very active. We could have a CME just like what I write about here, in which case I hope that by the time it happens, you've already read these books and started working on it, because this is your battle plan to get you through it and give you a good life. But a lot of the things that we're worried about right now may not happen. But I think that this is a concern to be that's worthy of being moved to the front burner. So just keep that in mind. You might want to buff up on your Espanol. Remember, as always, and thank you again to everybody who is making the sales of this latest book of mine, Hostages to Fortune. Yeah, I had to look because I had another word in my mind. I'm writing the 7th book, and I'm thinking about, this is the way a writer's mind works. I'm thinking about the 7th book, and so one of the potential titles for it slipped into my mind while I was given this one. So this last book that you all have just made explode, it's the biggest selling one yet, Hostages to Freedom. It is the 6th book of the Stonemont series. If you haven't read them, I'd love you to be a Stonemonter with the rest of us. I have a special announcement probably in about a week or so. So that is that the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom and hostages to fortune. Buy them while they're hot and be a part of us. Jump on. And you all remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And I'll talk to you mañana. Bye-bye.